Today we're going to be installing the Shop Floor Tape Pro Series number 5. This is the 513G glue down. So first of all, what we're going to do is we're finding our outside wall. That's this. Any wall that makes the structure of the house is called an outside wall. We found it. We went and we measured our material, 7 inches. So we went out 14 inches here, made 2 marks. Then I snapped a line, chalk line between those 2 marks. Next, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my straight edge, follow these marks like this, and go down the chalk line. And the reason why we're doing this is because of the fact that when we spread the glue, you don't have to worry about the chalk line. Chalk will disappear. I even take a vacuum and I'll vacuum it up. And that'll be discussed later. The reason why we do that is we do not want any problems with the glue. We don't want it to adhere to the chalk and not adhere to the floor. So then what we do is we'll glue this section first. Again, since we do have a pencil mark here, we can go about 1 inch or 2 past this line with a 16 by 16 inch notch trowel. Then we'll let that dry. It'll become clear, but not too dry. Then we'll start here and we'll work our way through, as you'll see. We're going to be discussing everything. First of all, acclimation, 3 days, a must on this product. The glue, you have to use the right stuff, T180. Expansion joints, we'll talk about that. Do not go tight to the wall. And then we'll be discussing stairs, how to handle that when you have a difference in height, because the stair tread will be 5/16 thicker than the material. We'll show you how to do all that in these videos. Thank you. So for a second, we're going to talk about stairs. We're going to talk about underlayment. Now, if you look at the top of the step here, we have one layer of APA certified underlayment. Now, notice on this, the reason why I chose this particular material is our stair treads going up are actually going to be almost 5/16 thicker than the product. So we're going to go ahead and remove about 6 inches off this here so that our stair tread then will be exactly the same level as our product. And that's going to be important because we don't want the stair tread to be higher, right? So we're going to remove this layer and we cover OSB because really it doesn't stick too much. You can put a layer of Ardex over it or Mapei with the additive, but I don't recommend it. I recommend spending the extra money and putting in plywood. Now notice the seams are nice and tight. Our nailing formation is 4 to 6 inches. I don't know if you can see that on the seams. It's very important to have enough nails, as well as 8 inches to a foot out in the field. Now, one very important thing is notice the edges. Nothing is tight. We have an expansion gap, even for plywood. We start from the center of the plywood, and we staple and we work out both directions. This is important so that it lays flat. Then the other thing to remember is sometimes other trades are working, you get little goobers like this all over the place. Don't think that you can just scrape that off, because what happens is then the glue, the T180, sticks to that and does not stick to the product itself and will come loose. These things are all important remembering when we're putting down underlayment. Okay, now we have about 6 feet of the LVP laid, and we're going to go ahead and roll it. We're going to go ahead and roll in this direction like this. Now what this does is it creates an environment where we have adhesion. Again, I'm not stepping on the product, but I'm just making sure that while the material is in the adhesive, that it gets proper adhesion. Okay, and then what I'm going to do is I'm going to put a piece of tape at the end of my last row, and then I'm going to do another 6 feet out, and then I'll roll to that spot. Again, we're not moving the material, as you can see, and we're just making sure that it gets good adhesion. Now we're going on to the next section after we got our room done there, and you can see when I mean the adhesive is creamy, right? It's dry. In fact, it's probably even dry to the touch. Okay, but it's still tacky. You don't want it too wet. Like over here, you can see that would be considered too wet. And now the trowel we used was a 16 by 16 inch. It's on the glue bucket. And we've used a fan over here, as you can see, and this allows us to speed up the process. Now, if we didn't have a fan, we'd have to wait probably a half an hour. Now, this was just quick. This probably took about 5-10 minutes
for it to get like this. Now, if it was colder outside, well, then that would make a difference. But it's really important not to let the glue set up too long, but yet you don't want to put it in wet.
So basically, now we're going to talk about installing the product. If you look right here, notice our seams. They're about 6 inches apart. You don't want any less than that, so it doesn't look awkward. We're going to cut in against this wall, as well as we're going to cut in around this doorway. What we're going to use is a little piece of scrap like this. I used my cutter so that I was square on both ends, and you'll see why that's important here in a second. So I'm going to take it, and what I do, for those of you who put in vinyl composition tile, it's kind of the same principle. We lay one on top of the other, exactly the same, and all the way down. So these are all loose, as you can see, and they're exactly on here. Really important that it doesn't shift, and you're going to take this here, take your knife, lay it on the edge, and you're going to do this, like this, all the way down, basically, okay? You can do it quite a few times. You follow it, okay? And make sure that you put a new blade in each time you do it, because you have the armor bead finish on it, which will eat through blades pretty quickly. Okay, so we're going to continue this out, again, pushing it over, making sure I'm on the other product. Okay, so we're going to work our way all the way down. And you might have to do this quite a few times. I've done this quite a bit, so it might look a little easier than it is. But there's nothing wrong with changing your blade in midstream. There's also nothing wrong in going over it more than once. It's just that simple. Now we're going to go ahead and break it. And then just take your knife along the back side of it. And that piece there should fit perfectly right in here. Okay, now what do we do here? Right, so same deal. We take this, we push it over to the edge, we make a mark. We come over here like this, follow it a little close, and you follow it down. Same principle here. Come down here. Around the corner. And you gotta remember there's a little doohickey here. We want to make some room for that as well. Okay. And then you take this. Now I'm going to cheat because this would take too long. And basically it becomes this when you're done. All right, so we're going to go ahead then and place this into place. And again, I'm kind of making it a little easier than it looks. It's going to take you a little bit longer to push it over and get it right. That's basically the desired look you want. Okay? Again, we want to keep our seams staggered. Nothing is tight. We have expansion joints. We undercut the door casings. And as you can see, this does break fairly easy. Again, you have to take your knife and you will get a nice clean edge. Again, that fits right in there. So now when I do this, we're going to stagger it. Okay, we want the seams to be at least 6 inches apart, so that's probably going to come out more like that.
Now, here's a problem that we run into quite a bit. And I did this on purpose just so you can see. Sometimes the edge is left up on this product. Okay, and I'm going to show you why. Okay, now we're going to come down here and we're going to look. And like, again, I did this on purpose. See how this here is a problem, right? It's going up and down, right? And people are wondering, why is this happening? I mean, again, the glue's still wet and tacky, and yeah, we can make that argument, but really let's look at the real problem, why it's doing this. Again, I did this on purpose, and we're going to go all the way to the wall. Now notice, there's no gap there on any of these three boards. Well, that board there, right? But anyway, these here are buckled because they're touching the wall. Okay, so you're going to need to cut and give yourself at least a 1/4 inch expansion gap. Now I know that doesn't sound right because it is just the LVP, but it's just material and it expands and contracts with temperature. So let's say you install this early in the morning. It gets to be 100 degrees in the house, which is a reality. And then all of a sudden, we have edges that lift up. And once the edges lift up, what happens? Well, then the glue dries completely under it, and then you have no adhesion. So that's how we avoid that problem. Another thing that can happen on this is you take a little super glue, crazy glue, Gorilla Glue, whatever, lift it up, put a little bit on that edge, put it right back down. You just take your knife blade, come under it here like this, lift up, put your Gorilla Glue on it, and you're fine. So anyway, those are easy fixes, but the reason why this happens, again, is it's too tight to the wall. So installers, please be mindful of that. I'm waiting for glue to dry, and we go through the boxes, and I'm just going through here, and I'm separating them. They're back to back, and we're turning them all the same way. And what's neat about this is we can inspect every board and see if there's any defect. That's important because we don't want to go ahead and install this floor and then find out that, wait a minute, we have a defect. I'm going to show you one here that I found. Okay, so anyway, I don't know if you can catch that right away, but I did when I was running my hand over it. I felt it was right there. So what had happened was probably some material fell on it as it was being curing. So how do we handle that? Well, there's a few pieces we're going to find like this in any lot. It's perfectly normal. So we're not going to be returning product for a number of reasons. We'll go into it here in a second. So we just take a pencil mark, we mark it, right? So then we got that mark, we come over to our tile cutter again, and we cut it right at that mark. Now, we know that we can use that for our fills, right? Now, so let's talk for a second about that. Why do we not want to return material? First of all, the obvious. You don't get done with the job, you don't get paid. So we want to get paid. The other thing is think of the customer. They have company coming, they got deadlines, they got work, etc. You promised them it would be done by a certain date. We want to continue to keep our word. Happy customer. So a lot of times product comes defective. You can cut that defect out and continue to install your product. And then you have a happy customer and you get a paycheck.